Hello, how are you? I hope you're good. Welcome back to another You Recommend series. I asked you for your best of the best of recommendation on a particular subject on Instagram, always linked below if you're not following me there. And then you submit a recommendation to your fellow readers of something that you think is like chef kiss. And there are genres that I'm honestly really not versed in, and horror is definitely one of them. Maybe one day, but at the moment, I don't know. But you guys definitely did. I obviously cannot fit all of them, but I selected the ones that have repeated the most or something that caught my eye, and I've curated the list of top 15 books you guys recommend around the spooky season. I hope you'll find what you're looking for, and thank you so much to those who recommended things to your fellow readers. I'm just like a middle guy here. I hope this exchange works well. If you have certain topics that you don't like discussed in books, I always encourage people to look up trigger or content warnings. It always applies, but I feel like in horror even more so, because a lot of topics that are normally maybe taboo and not mentioned often in horror, they will be. So definitely check them out. And one author came up very often, but I decided to exclude it from the list because I think that that's something that's quite easy for you to find, and that's Stephen King. There were a lot of recommendations for his books, but I think if you just aware that Stephen King writes horror, you can always go and check those out. As these books are books recommended by you, I have not read them. If something piques your interest, I definitely recommend looking up the full description. And this is just like the crumbs from the synopsis, and I can also misunderstand the synopsis, so if I am, or if I do, I'm sorry, but this is just to offer a crumb of intrigue that's what the video is for. First up, we have The Troops. I will be checking my phone as well. The Goodreads average rating is 3.8 stars, and it was published in 2014. This seems to be a story about a scoutsman who leads a group of boys into the wilderness for a camping trip, as per usual. However, there's an intruder carrying a bioengineered virus that infects some, and they have to fight amongst each other and against this creature. If you want to really lead into viruses, being that it's COVID times, this could be a good shout. House of Leaves, published in 2000s with an average rating of 4.05. We have I think in horror we have quite a few of haunted house or a cursed house or sentient house, something within a house. And this seems to be very much along the lines of a young family moves into a house, and the house is bigger inside than it is from the outside, and obviously there's something supernatural happening here. So if you're looking for haunted house trope, this could be a good contender. It came up quite a bit, but there are also a couple coming up that fit the same trope if you're looking for it. Then we have a Bird Box with a rating of 4.02, which came out in 2014, and I'm pretty sure Netflix adaptation came out a year or two ago as well. If you love to read a book and then be able to watch an adaptation of it, this could be a really good way to. This seems to be a story about a world where there was something extremely horrible around, and no one is allowed to open their eyes or they die. And we're following a woman with young children who decides to take a chance and try and find safety. However, she has to trek all of this journey that includes like crossing rivers, blindfolded, only relying on her own senses and her children's senses. Someone or something is behind her. Hex is a translated horror, a Dutch author if I'm not mistaken. This is a new release which came out in this year, and the average rating is 3.72. This one also came up very often. It seems to be really liked. People mentioned that it is very unputdownable and really creepy. It seems to be about a town that seems very idyllic from the outside, but is actually under a curse or haunted by this lady from another era. Soon other towns realize that something not quite right is happening there, and they place that town under a quarantine. And then this story is about a couple of teenagers who really get fed up with that and want to solve this and get out of there. Whilst they're trying to do this and they're going on this witch hunt, they accidentally go viral and draw more attention, which then leaves the town being in even more dire situation with all of the supernatural stuff kicking off. One of the older ones on the list was published in 1962, is We Have Always Lived in the Castle. This seems to be also like a haunted house story, but maybe more focused on the actual people who live in there. This has had perhaps the most vague and the weirdest little synopsis that I've ever seen. It doesn't tell you much at all, apart from that this girl lives in this house. So I actually went a little bit into the comments of reviews. It seems like it's going to be an unreliable narrator, and it's again about the family and the town distancing themselves from the family in this house. Even then, obviously, people didn't want to spoil anything in the review, so this is as much as I could gather about it. With that type of trope, I feel like there's a particular plot line that people stay within. So I think that's maybe why there's not a lot of information usually, apart from is gonna be a haunted house. Another one that came up really often was The Only Good Indians. This was released in 2020 and the average rating is 3.74 stars. If you're craving horror, really don't need to look any further than Our Own Society, and if that's the type of horror that you like to have sprinkled in your novels, this seems to be a very good fit. It has a lot of social commentary, and it follows 4 American Indians who, after a mysterious or disturbing event from their youth, puts them in a very dangerous situation, and an unknown entity is seeking vengeance. Released in the same year is the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. This is an author that also came up quite a bit. This title came up the most, but I know there is mixed opinions on which book is best. The average rating is 3.84 stars. It sounds really quirky and it sounds like it would be almost humorous, but from some of the reviews that I've seen, actually isn't. Correct me if I'm wrong, could be wrong. I just saw one review that said it isn't, that like don't be fooled. This is, as the title would suggest, this is southern flavored, so if that's something you look for, look no further. But this is about Patricia, who has kids and a husband and a job and doesn't find joy in anything. The only thing that she really looks forward to is this housewives suburban book club, and then they have a new member come into the neighborhood. However, children start going missing and she suspects the newbie. And of course she starts investigating and, you know, bites on something that she's not able to chew. Next we have a book perfect for those who are terrified of deep sea, Into the Drowning Deep. The average rating is 3.99 and it was published in 2017. I do know that there is a novella that you could read before this as well. It's not necessary, but if you wanted to, just wanted you to know. There was a crew going down deep into the sea to film a mockumentary, I think about mermaids. I'm not quite sure, it's not actually, I don't think mentioned in the synopsis, but from my memory, I believe this is about savage mermaids. It's a mermaid horror, but the whole crew of the mockumentary has disappeared, so a lot of people obviously assume that it is a marine tragedy. And then there's another expedition going, and our main character, a lot of people for different reasons, it's not for entertainment however, and our main character is going because her sister was in the previous crew. Another one from quite some time ago, it was first published in 1954. The average rating is 4.01. If you've read Why the Last Man, this seems similar, but instead of just last man, this is more so last man as a person, and everyone else has turned into vampires. So by day he goes and hunts the vampires, and by night he just prays that he sees the dawn again. Next two are probably the most YA mentioned ones. So first up we have House of Hollow at a very high rating of 4.11. This is a new release. It's came out this year. This follows 3 sisters that all have odd abilities. It all stems from something that happened to them in the childhood. Very big trope, I think, also in horror, I've noticed from, you know, doing this research. One of the sisters goes missing and the other 2 are following the crumbs and the clues that she's left behind, and they realize that they have to figure out what did happen to them as kids in order to actually find her and save her and put the equation together. Another one is White Smoke. This one has 3.98 stars average rating, but it also is a 2021 release. It is about a girl running from ghosts, first metaphorically, as their family is moving to another town and she's leaving everything behind, and then kind of literally because they move into this house again. It's a very odd house. Things start happening. Some supernatural activity occurs. It seems to actually extend outside the house and into the whole town, so it's not just like a haunted house, maybe it's a haunted town, because it said in the synopsis that the town has secrets, and obviously those will get out. The next one seems really fucked up, so probably not for everyone. A novel called Suffer the Children. The average rating is 3.84 and it was published in 2014. But this seems to be about a mysterious illness, Herod's syndrome, broke through and caused all of the young children to die very instantly. But then they rose from the dead. They had this zombie-like or vampire-like need to feed on blood. And after feeding on that blood, they actually return back to life. However, only for a little bit until they have to do that again. The synopsis made it really sinister because it said, you know, there's this amount of blood in your body, and how far would you go to bring your children back? Very morally questionable things happening. Then we have another haunted house. It appeared so many times, and it also, I think, pretty sure made the thriller recommendation list. But it's Home Before Dark, another author that is very known within the genre, and this seems to be about a woman who inherits a house, and she is, I think, like a renovator, I'm not quite sure, and she inherits it from her father, who actually wrote a lot of stories about the hauntings in the house and was known for that. But she doesn't believe any of that. She doesn't even remember what was in the book, but she will soon, because obviously she will start experiencing that. So another haunted house. I wanted to include a sci-fi here as well. So we have The Luminous Dead with the average rating of 3.72. Did I even mention? Home Before Dark had a 4.09 average rating, and it was published in 2020. And The Luminous Dead has 3.72 as a rating, and it was published in 2019. This was pitched as The Martian meets Annihilation. Our main character, Geyer, she cheats on her application to this out-of-Earth mission, thinking that she's just going to, like, you know, mapping some minerals and do stuff that she knows how to do, and will be with the team that want to, you know, keep her safe. Unfortunately, she is with someone who knows that she's faked it. They don't really care, but they also are keeping her under particular drugs to keep her maybe easier to manipulate. I'm not quite sure. But at some point, this person also has a change of motivations and actually seems to want to get rid of them altogether. And I'm assuming this is where the Martian comes in, because they have to then navigate terrain and have to manage to get back either on the ship or to Earth, thinking that it's also made extra hard because they were drugged. Actually sounds really intriguing to me, because I really like sci-fi. And the last one is the only book on the list that I've read, and that's Mexican Gothic. The average rating is 3.7 and it was released in 2020. Another haunted house story, and it's about our main character who gets a letter from her newlywed cousin that seems very out of character, and she decides to go into that husband's manor and investigate what's happening to her, but they keep keeping her busy and not letting her properly see and properly speak to her cousin, so she keeps staying there wanting to see what happens, and the whole family is giving her like bad vibes apart from one unexpected ally. I don't want to say anything else, and the house is becoming weirder and weirder, as you do. And I will also mention for manga lovers that I did get quite a few recommendations for this particular author, but surprisingly it was never a particular manga, just the author. So I'm just gonna leave the name here in case you want to check it out, because I thought it was interesting. I added one to my TBR, so in case you wanted to. But I hope that helped. I hope you found something that tickled your curiosity. Let me know if you did. Stay awesome, stay spooky, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!